It's 105 years since the South first played the Springboks at Mansfield. And in these 105 years, we've beaten Australia twice, drawn with South Africa twice, drawn with Argentina, we've beaten Fiji, and we've beaten Japan. We've never beat New Zealand, but we've run them close twice. 1938 at Mansfield, Jack Manchester's All Blacks that Linda referred to, that Bill obviously made a big impression on Bill McLaren. Got beat 11-3, but they won 11-8, sorry, but they won the try count 2-1. 1963, Mansfield again, Wilson Winnery's All Blacks. Got beat 8-0, but the game was in the balance to the last minute when the boy Chris Laidlaw had to drop a goal to win it in injury time. It's a rich and powerful heritage, and to celebrate tonight, we've got 48 guys that played for the South, dating back 60 years to Arthur Durward, Rob Naylor, Basher Inglis, and Derek Brown, that played against Basil Kenyon's Springboks in 1951. Now, the fact that as many who have turned up here tonight, it has to send a powerful message out just how strong rugby still is in the Borders, and how the bond between the Border clubs still as tight now as it ever was. According to Bill McLaren's biography, he was very unlucky not to get picked to play against the Wallabies in 47, and for the Springbok game in 51 he actually had his audition for the BBC. Now this was a game that Basher played in, Derek played in, Rob Naylor of Hawick played in, Arthur Dorward played in. It was essentially a young side Basher.
Well, they're kind of good.
Terrible conditions that day. We trained at Melrose in the snow, and the pitch was a hell of a mess. And there was one occasion on the Thursday night where it was so bad that Basher suggested that we should go outside and rumble about in the snow and have a snowball fight. Todd Burrell was the full-back on that occasion, and his remarks were really unrepeatable.
What would go?
I think it was the same. You speak for yourself. I think it was the same on the Saturday at Hawick. The Springboks were a massive side. I remember running onto the field, and if the gate had been open at the far end of the pitch, I would have been right over the gate. Huge men.
Big crowd?
Big crowd, 14,000 of a crowd, 14,000 that day. The referee is still alive to this day, a fellow Donny Innes, who played for Aberdeen Grammar School, and he's either 93 or 94. He was cut for Scotland before the war and after the war. And I'll tell you something, he looks a hell of a lot fitter than some of us here tonight.
Did he know disallowed? A try for North Davidson?
Yes, there was a try disallowed. And I think Leslie Allen was the only person outside to score. It was a rough, dirty game. Basher, somebody tried to bite his ear. Jimmy Johnson, somebody tried to grab Jimmy Johnson where it really hurts. All hell went loose after that. One thing I do remember was the Springbok captain, was his name, with the name of Heine Moore, at half-time having a cigarette at half-time. You got your expenses, I think it was 10 pence, well with 2 shillings at least, 10 pence for your train fare from Melrose to Hawick. And a return fare, that was your expenses, wasn't it?
I never got on it, he must have been. I'm still looking for the money. You want to hear Derek said, the first scrum man done, and the boy bit me on the lug. And the scrum broke up, and Joey McLeod and John Fox said, what's going on? I said, this guy bit me on the lug. And I says, the next scrum, I'm not even going done. And so the next scrum we went down, I had the guy right in the braid of the nose. I can still see the tears yet. I thought him and me was the best of all. I said, he's got to get the piss out of me.
Yes, good.
I'll tell you, this was the South playing the North at St Andrews. Joe Kim and me got the train at Selkirk, 7 o'clock in the morning, went to Galway, changed trains, went to Edinburgh, changed trains, we got to St Andrews, and we came back, and it was 10 o'clock at night, and all we'd been at St Andrews to play a game with the South and the North. It was whole bloody Saturday, gone there and back. Now we can fly to Australia down to the same.
1960, Admiral Milan Springboks. You were playing, Good Roach was playing, Nat Clarkson was playing. That was the hour there. That was the Hopwood game.
Yes, sir.
I was actually a ball boy at that game. They were the biggest men I've ever seen in my life. And he'd basically play back rows when
Bigger as you.
I was only 12 at the time. But,
It was a very good side. Hopwood was a great player, and Milan was a huge forward, tremendous player, second row, and a great captain. They were a very, very big side, and I think we did very well against them again. But again, I think the conditions, the ground conditions were pretty ordinary that day, and it slowed them up a wee bit.
you got outpowered up front, but
Yes.
George Stevenson scored a try the other day.
When you were going memory, are you reading off of there?
When I was asked being to say a few words tonight, I was quite a shock to look back on my playing days for the South and find I was turning the clock back 47 years. How time flies. My first game for the South against the touring side was in 1964 All Blacks at Mansfield. David Chisholm was captain. There were 9 Hawick, 3 Melrose, 2 Gala and 1 Langham. There was a crowd of 15,000 Borders Rugby supporters, which created a great atmosphere for the game. I was only 21 and remember running out of the tunnel, standing watching them doing the haka. It was like being on another planet. Well, when I had the first line out, it was a different planet. Their forwards seemed to be huge. Colin Meads, Ken Gray, Wilson Whinery, I'm sure a lot of you will remember them, Kel Tremaine, Walker Nathan, and this guy Horsley. When I looked at him, he had a squint nose, his eyes were burling, he had pieces of gristle stuck to the side of his head for ears. I don't mind much about the first line out, as they panned the ball back to later their scum half, and when I went through the line out and tried to reach this guy with the stuck-on lugs belted me with his elbow and I landed at Moose Hastie's feet. That was my baptism to South Rugby. Jim Telfer was leading the forwards, but as he had 6 high forwards, it must have been easy for him, as he just followed us about all afternoon. That's true, isn't it? We were only beaten 8-0 and gave them a good run for their money, thanks to some great defence work from Christy Elliott, Elliot Broach and Jim Gray, who kept them on their back foot. We used the wheel and the feet to good effect that afternoon, which really upset them. My next game in the South was against Australia in 1966. 7 Hawick, 4 Melrose, 2 Gala, 1 Langham and 1 Kelso. There was a big crowd, and I must admit the Australians were different to the All Blacks. They were good looking, they were tanned and very athletic. I had the honour of captain the side as Jim Telfer was injured the week before, so only had you in training session. We just went out and got stuck in. Actually, we were meeting at the Victoria Hotel in Hawick, and I think Robbie will bear us up on this, we actually walked into Mansfield, and it was unbelievable, the sort of feeling he got when he was getting done. They would never do that nowadays, he wouldn't be allowed, to be quite honest. We won 13-0 to be the first district team to beat a touring side. Rob Welsh and Gordon Tweedy getting the tries. To play for the South gave club players the opportunity to advance their careers, and it is sad that we have lost this direction in this way. When you think back 47 years, our coaches were the senior players in your club, playing at a higher level. Not what they have in some cases today, coaches who speak a good game. When mentioning coaches, Jim Telfer has done more than anybody for the South, although some of you don't agree with his methods, but I've been at the coalface on many occasions, and a spade's a spade with Jim. All the tours I've been on with him, he ran it by himself. Mind, he was sometimes blinkered, but a top man in my book. My first overseas tour was to South Africa, and Jim made it the most enjoyable tour I was on. I suppose we were all from border clubs. As Ian says, we beat North Cape 33-5 at Lollyville North, which is a country district, drew with Transvaal at Ellis Park, unlucky not to win, beaten 13-9-21 by Orne Free State at Bloemfontein, which is a real sort of Afrikaans park, lost in Natal at Durban 15-8. It's sad that 6 of the South players from that era have passed away, but I'm sure they will be looking down on us tonight. We were lucky to play when we did, and I'm sure you all have been proud to have played for the South at that time. I can assure you I did. Thanks for the memories.